Hello, everyone. Hi, thanks for joining us for a special look at the amazing technology our restoration teams use to restore deep coral habitats in the Gulf. My name is Sasha Francis, and I'm the Gulf Restoration Education and Outreach Manager, and I'll be your host today. Our team members are out on a ship right now, and pretty soon we'll have the opportunity to connect with them and see what they're up to. They're on a ship called the RV Point Sur, which is a 135-foot vessel owned by the University of Southern Mississippi and operated by the Louisiana University's Marine Consortium, or LUMCON. Today, the team is currently about 60 miles off the coast of Louisiana. Throughout today's program, please share any questions or comments that come up in the chat to the right of your screen there. We'll pause for questions as we go, so please make sure to put those in the chat. And then if you can't access the chat for some reason, check to make sure you're logged into YouTube. Sometimes you have to be logged in order to access the chat. And if you have to log in and jump back in, we will be here for about a 30-minute program, so come on back. And if you're watching the recorded version of this, be sure to check out the links in the video description to keep learning more about this work. All right, in just a few minutes, we'll connect with folks on board. But first, we're going to talk about where they are and why they're out there at sea. So we're going to learn a little bit about this before we jump to the ship and talk to our folks here. All right, so as you travel deeper in the ocean, less and less sunlight is able to penetrate the water. Just past recreational scuba diving limits, you reach the mesophotic zone, meaning middle light. Despite the low levels of sunlight, this zone is home to colorful corals, sponges, fish, and invertebrates. And beyond this twilight zone, there's actually no sunlight at all, as well as colder temperatures and higher pressure. But there are still vibrant habitats full of life at these depths, hundreds to thousands of feet below the surface. However, and these mesophotic and deep and thick or seafloor ecosystems are found worldwide, including in the Gulf. But in 2010, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill dealt a heavy blow to the Gulf communities on land and at sea. About 11 people lost their lives, and natural resources, wildlife, and habitats across the northern Gulf were severely impacted. Over 770 square miles of deep sea habitat were impacted by the spill. As a result, collaborative restoration projects are underway to help us understand and restore these seafloor ecosystems. These are found below 160 feet deep. The projects are developing new and improved maps of the seafloor to locate these important coral communities. They're learning more about the species that live in these habitats, the environmental conditions they thrive in, and how they may be connected across the Gulf. They're determining the best methods to encourage deep sea coral growth and reproduction to help restore impacted coral species and the important habitat they create. They're reducing the threats that these ecosystems face, and also connecting the habitats and restoration work to the public and natural resource managers through programs like this. This restoration work, made possible by the Deepwater Horizon Natural Resource Damage Assessment Open Ocean Trustees, is led by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Department of the Interior, plus many partners, including a large number of academic institutions and non-governmental organizations. All right, so now that you've gotten to know a little bit more about these projects, why we're out there in the Gulf doing this work, we are going to connect with the ship. So let's meet some folks on board and see what they're up to today. Ooh, very exciting things happening. All right, it looks like we are descending with the ROV down to the seafloor. Ooh, wow, we have in the driver's seat here. Hi, can y'all introduce yourselves and tell us what your roles are on this expedition? Oh, and we have the live feed of the ROV camera as well, so you're seeing what's happening in real time.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacy Harder. I'm a research ecologist with NOAA's Southeast Fisheries Science Center. On this mission, I am the field party chief. I'm also one of the project managers for this MDBC portfolio of projects.
Hey, I'm Samantha Flounders. I'm an ROV pilot and technician with the Undersea Vehicles program at the University of Wilmington, North Carolina.
Awesome. And you are piloting now, it seems. And
Yep.
And the Mohawk, our ROV, really the star
That's
of this
correct.
program, is heading on down. So we're really here to talk ROVs and learn more about these remotely operated vehicles. So what is a remotely operated vehicle? Can you tell us like what they are and what they can do in the deep sea?
Yeah, absolutely. A remotely operated vehicle is a tethered submersible. It's tethered by an umbilical cable, and the umbilical cable is attached to the ship, connected to the ship, and the cable is what receives all the power and the communications and sends it to the ROV. Uh, sorry, I'm actually getting a call from the bridge right now. Hold on one second. Go for bridge.
No worries. Important stuff comes first. Real-time science, folks.
You gotta love the
we're
real time
just chatting right now, so we're just going to the bottom.
Right. So as they're piloting down, as Sam's piloting down, she's getting direct communications from the bridge, which is where, the captain of the ship is, all the folks driving the ship right now. They have to continuously communicate with the ROV pilot so that they're in the right place for that ROV to be where it needs to be, and for that umbilical that Sam just mentioned to not be pulled too tightly. So they have to be in constant communication. So, got to do what you got to do. All right. So as you all going down there, Stacy, can you tell me a little bit about what your game plan is for this particular ROV dive today, what you're hoping to accomplish, what the Mohawk is going to help us do?
Sure. So we're at a place called Henderson Ridge North. And we are going to go down and we're going to do some transects with the ROV, which will help us characterize the habitat. We're going to make some collections of target species and subsample them for things like genetics, stable isotopes, trophic ecology, all kinds of fun things. And yeah, so we're gonna basically go down and do transects and collections is our goal here today.
Excellent. So for some folks that might not be super familiar with all of those kinds of operations that we do, can you describe a little bit what it's like to do a transect and like what you're seeing in real time as that's happening and why we do those?
So basically a transect is kind of a segment of a dive. We divide the dive up into certain segments, and this allows us to know exactly what area we've gone over and allows us to calculate density of organisms that we're seeing. So this helps us characterize the habitat, what organisms live there, what densities they're living in, how they're interacting with their habitat and things like that.
Awesome. So yeah, it's kind of like a strategic way to go back and forth or across a certain part of the seafloor so we can get a really good idea of what it looks like down there. And you can see on the screen right now, it's showing us kind of what it looks like when you're operating one of those transects and what we're seeing down there. And then we can save all of that video and actually do some annotations, right? So some folks will go back and look and try to identify the species that we actually see in this video footage. And we also have an opportunity for folks like you that are listening into this live stream to actually participate in that annotation, which is really cool. We have a program called Click a Coral. So if you look up Click a Coral, you can actually watch some of this video footage that we've collected in the past that Stacy has led on some of the expeditions that she's been field party chief on to gather all of that video, right? People can help us actually identify the different things we see down there, which is really cool. And there was another question I was going to ask you. So, you were saying collecting some samples of some target species. So what kind of species are we talking? Corals, sponges? What are we looking for today?
Primarily corals for the stable isotopes genetics work, but we're also collecting we want to get a good idea of what the biodiversity is down there. So we've got folks from the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History out here with us, and so they're wanting to kind of collect a variety of organisms just to get an idea of the diversity of organisms that's out in these habitats, and they'll also do some genetics works on them as well. But corals are our primary target for a lot of our restoration activities. And so one of our objectives while we're out here is trying to collect live corals that we're going to bring back to our labs to do some husbandry work and propagation tests on them for future propagation studies.
Awesome. Yeah, we can see some sample collection here on the screen of some things that we've done recently. That's really exciting, and especially exciting to have some more live corals back in our labs for our aquarists to take care of and learn more about. And that's, really a lot of the things we're talking about doing today it's all to learn more about these habitats so that we can better restore them, right? So, Stacy, can you tell us a little bit how genetics can kind of help us learn more about the habitats? Is it like how we figure out how maybe this coral is connected to that coral over there? Can you give us a little bit of information on why we're collecting the genetics information?
Yeah, so genetics will help us identify species. One of the great things that we've been able to do with this project is, especially with our project, our partnership with the Smithsonian, is we've been able to find several new species along the way so far on this project, which is really exciting. They haven't been identified before, and genetics are the way that we can get it down to the species level and figure out what is what and what the biodiversity and the genetic diversity looks like in these habitats.
Very cool. Yeah, I think we have some articles about identifying new species and like what it's like to take a sample back from taking it at sea and bringing it back to the National Museum of Natural History. So maybe one of our assistants here in the background can find that. We can add it to the chat later, but it's a very, very cool article that kind of helps explain that. Awesome. So why do we need ROVs? Like, can't we just like send scuba divers down there, or like people?
Yeah, we need ROVs because humans obviously can't go to the depths that ROVs can. Our ROV is outfitted with oil-filled junction box and canisters and other non-compressible pieces of equipment. Additionally, another benefit, because even if you send saturation divers down to the depths, our ROV, never has to go pee, never gets tired, never needs to take a break. We just reach out pilots, so you don't have the human element as necessity. Also, you're not putting any humans in danger because these are complex, dangerous, ever-changing environments, a lot of current shifts and complex navigation. So to put a human down is dangerous. So we avoid that as well by using ROVs.
Awesome. And yeah, even if we wanted to send some scuba divers down, mostly where we mentioned earlier when I was talking about the projects, we're below 160 feet. And although some divers can go down there, we do work with some divers that can go deeper. It is really helpful to have the ROVs because we can go a lot deeper than even the best divers and stay down a lot longer. How long do the pilots have to stay there and operate the ROV in a given day, Sam?
It really depends what dive we're doing, what we're looking to do. Our vehicle is not one of the larger work class vehicles. We're more in the maximum range of 11 hours being our longest dive. Other vehicles will stay down over 24-hour periods and just ship pilots out. We do one pilot a day, so we pretty much have a working 12-hour day, and then we'll recover the vehicle and actually go to bed and do it all over again.
And although you said the benefit of using RVs is you don't need snacks or bathroom breaks, but you have a backup, right, that can jump in if you need something.
Yeah, and plenty of other operations just keep the vehicle down for days at a time.
And do you have snacks nearby? I hope so.
Of course. We have a little snack drawer.
You got a little snack drawer? Love that. Okay, fantastic. All right, so we are highlighting this very cool robot. You can see a video of the launch right now going out, which is awesome. And as you know, boats are usually moving, even when you're staying still. So it takes a few people to launch it off, it looks like, to make sure everything's steady. So on that note, we still have to use humans in order to really make the best of this technology. So what are the different roles that go into, operating? And I know we talked about piloting a little bit. Who else needs to be involved? I think I hinted a little bit to, working with the ship, but what all does it take to kind of make the most of this ROV dive every day?
Do you want to talk about the ROV roles first?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, necessary, need the pilot to operate and control the vehicle, see navs and have comms with the bridge, top of the house. So we're constantly in communication with the bridge who's navigating the ship. We work in tandem to move the vessel and the submersible that's hundreds of meters deep throughout the seafloor to do the transects that Stacy mentioned, to collect the samples. So a constant dynamic working between the ship's crew, the pilot, and then the mission is all for the scientists.
Yeah, so there's also, in addition to all the ROV roles and tasks that we have our science party aboard as well. And so that kind of starts with the field party chief, which for this mission is myself. And so planning will start months in advance, where we're looking at what are the objectives of this mission, what are our target locations, and then from there we figure out what's the science party, who do we need, the expertise that we need on board in order to be able to accomplish those objectives. But while we're doing the ROV dive, it's a whole teamwork. You've usually got somebody leading the dive and telling when we're on and off transect. We've got a data manager that's recording everything into a standardized database. We've got people that are taking pictures. In addition to the video on the ROV, we've also got digital still cameras. And so we've got people taking pictures. And then we've got our sampling team that are helping us identify and prioritize all the target species that we want to collect to get further information on. So definitely team effort.
Yeah. And, working with the Smithsonian team is really awesome, because it's my understanding that they have a lot of experts that are, really have really specific knowledge on different types of corals or sponges or different things, so that they can really spot what you're looking for, right?
Absolutely. Yes. They all have their kind of little niche of things that they work on, but, very knowledgeable in a broad array of organisms.
That's awesome. So, since y'all have been doing work like this for a little while, I wanted to ask, how did you get into your field of work? Like, Sam, how did you become an ROV pilot, which is so cool?
I know it's such a niche job, hard
Yeah.
to come by. Not a lot of ROV pilots out, especially in the science field. A lot more oil and gas ROV pilots exist than science ROV pilots. I find my way into this career. I used to work on NOAA research vessels as a bridge watch officer. I used to be a NOAA Corps officer, and you showed some of them in your videos. They're under the Department of Commerce and operate NOAA's aircraft and vessels. So I was a NOAA Corps officer, and there was different ROVs that came aboard our ship, and I got to see what they saw and what they did, the ROVs themselves and the pilots, and thought it was a really cool job, because you've got your own little personal ship that you take down to the seafloor depths and explore. And a job opened up with the Undersea Vehicles program, and I instantly applied and have been here for 3 or 4 years now, and really been enjoying all the things that we get to see, research, and all the extremely intelligent people that we get to work with.
Awesome. Yeah. We met when I was like 3 weeks into my job, we met on the first restoration expedition I got to go on. So it's really fun to meet different ROV pilots and learn about how they got into that role, because it is super unique. And I see a lot of, kids that don't necessarily think that they're good at science, but they're really good at video games. And to see them operate our smaller ROV, we're able to take into community pools, and it has a video game controller, and they're just so intuitive with it. And I'm really awful at piloting it, actually. It's really cool to see that opportunity and that, that realization in them that they could work in science as well, and basically be a video game ROV pilot. It's really cool. All right, Stacey, what about you?
I guess I always had an interest in, the marine environment and the organisms that lived in there since I was a young kid. But I don't think it was until I was a little bit older that I was watching a documentary on marine science as a career. And I realized, well, I could have this as a career. I could combine something that I love with, my career. So as an undergrad, when I was doing my undergrad program, I did an internship with NOAA and got introduced to the research side of things and fell in love with it. And the rest is kind of history. I just stayed in that field and went on and got my master's, and then ended up getting a job at the NOAA lab where I did my internship. So it was
awesome. Great. And do you work primarily on these restoration projects? Do you have other roles that you have at the moment, or kind of really just focused on this?
Right now, I am all this restoration project. That's 100% of my time. Prior to this, I was working on a couple of different projects, one in the Gulf, one in the Atlantic, looking at marine protected areas and if they're effective and changes over time in the fish populations and things like that.
Yeah. And these restoration projects are really, unique, because a lot of this, the experts and specialists that we have working on these restoration projects, they're really used to doing like different research that is specific to, answering this or that question. But for this restoration work, and instead of doing research, we're just, really doing all this science to directly, learn more to better restore these habitats. So it's really unique opportunity, I'm sure, compared to stuff you've done in the past. So is that really cool to be able to do and make this like direct impact in these habitats like we're doing
Absolutely.
in Louisville?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm loving the restoration work. The projects that I was working on before were actually ROV projects. So some of it was very similar, like the diving, the transecting, the characterizing the habitat and that kind of thing. But the questions behind why you're doing what you're doing and then adding in all of the actual direct restoration work that this project is doing is definitely something new and different. And it's very exciting, and I'm loving it.
Awesome. We looks like we might still have another couple minutes before we're on the bottom, but please do tell me when we are, and I will move along to let you guys focus. But what are some of the challenges of operating a robot, an underwater robot, 60 to 100 miles offshore? I'm sure things happen. I'm sure it can be challenging, and you really have to think on your feet. So have you had to overcome any challenges lately? And, what do you do in that situation? You can't just like run to a hardware store and buy what you need to fix an underwater robot. And so what do you do? And have you run into any challenges?
Yeah, great question. A necessity of our job is being prepared for when things break. We have a whole slew of spares that we carry with us. We carry spare thrusters. We carry all the parts for the thrusters. We carry additional printed circuit boards, every tool we could need for the vehicle. We have a spare umbilical cable. You name it, we have it. We've been working for so many years that we know what's typical to break, and thus our spares are replenished with these type of items. We're capable of opening the manipulator arm and fixing things that go wrong with it at sea. And you can only be prepared and carry so many spares. And as you mentioned, you can't go to the hardware store. And a lot of these things are specialty items, potentially international from overseas. So we have a detailed list of everything and do on the job at sea fixes all the time, and are pretty dang good at getting the vehicle back in the water. We'll make a quick fix, put the vehicle back down, keep the scientists happy, keep the science going.
Absolutely.
Yeah, common things break and we fix them all the time.
Make the most of every minute we're out there. Y'all are incredible at fixing things on the fly, it seems. Awesome.
Yes, they definitely are. There's always the risk of when you put this big piece of technology with all kinds of electronics and sensors in it, when you put that in the water, you're always taking the risk that something's going to happen. And these guys, luckily, are very good at fixing things or coming up with ways to fix them.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. I was at SIA last month, and a couple of repairs needed to the RV we were using for that mission, and it was really amazing to see the pilots and engineers, thinking on their feet and being really creative at repairing it, and really, making the most of every minute. And one of the perks of being at sea is the giant ice cream freezer. I'm assuming there's one on Point Sur, right?
Yes, there is.
Yes. And that is how they reinforce themselves for all their hard work, is, eating a bunch of ice cream. And we're like, yes, thank you for everything you do. Eat as much ice cream as you want. Awesome. So we have, how far are we from the bottom here? Oh, the live feed came back up here.
We are just about on bottom now, just a few more meters to go.
Awesome. So we'll be able to
down to about 450 meters today.
Ooh, wow, that's deep. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Cool. How deep is the Mohawk rated, Sam?
We're rated for 1,000 meters.
1,000 meters.
1,000 meters, but the umbilical cable that we have on this ship with our hydraulic winch is 1,000 meters. So that is our max depth, and all items on the vehicle are rated over 1,000 meters.
Awesome. So that's really deep. We're just about off the bottom now, and we'll be able to pull this live feed back when we see some cool stuff as we're going. We'll be able to plug that back into the feed. And so we'll let y'all go so you can focus on getting that to the bottom and what you need to do down there. And then we'll be able to see a little bit of what's happening shortly. And it looks like we might have a special guest to pivot to for a few moments here before we move on. But thank you so much, Sam and Stacy, for chatting with us. And good luck with this dive today. I'm sure you'll get really cool samples and see lots of cool stuff. And we can't wait to see some footage.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Awesome. All right. It sounds like we have a special guest potentially joining us. Hey, Eric, nice to see you.
How you doing, Sasha?
Great. Do you want to tell folks here joining in who you are and what you do for this restoration work here that we're highlighting today?
Sure. I'm Eric Cortez. I'm a professor at Temple University. I'm a deep sea ecologist, and I've been working in the Gulf specifically for over 20 years. I did a lot of the work in the follow-up from Deepwater Horizon and have been involved, in the natural resources damage assessment and now the restoration ever since.
Wow, amazing. And so you know a lot about deep sea corals, huh?
I guess so. Yeah, my students who are out there right now are learning lots of things that I don't know yet. So that's good.
That's very cool. So you have some students out at sea on the Point Sur right now. What an amazing opportunity. So working in, your lab there at Temple, they're able to potentially go out to sea and help with this really important work. That's fantastic.
Yep. One of them, Morgan, is working.
They just wave to you.
Hi. Morgan is working on a lot of the transects that Stacy was talking about. And Chris is doing a time series study to see what the corals have done over time. We're looking at whether, there were some impacts obviously from the spill, but we don't know exactly where they were still to this day. And we're not sure if there have been other disturbances since then that have affected coral health. And so we're still watching that over time at a bunch of different sites to see how the corals are recovering, what state they're in now, and how we can best restore these populations.
Yeah. And I know that something that you have quite a bit of experience with is some of these hard corals that aren't very common deeper in the Gulf. So usually when we get down into these depths past sunlight, we see a lot of soft corals, right? But I know something that you have a lot of experience with that we've seen some footage of and gotten some samples of on this expedition is actually a harder coral, right? The desmophyllum. So how is that different from the softer corals that we might be collecting with the ROV today?
Well, we just saw a few different types of corals. So that last one, the big colony, was a black coral. And those can be really, really old, thousands of years old. The skeleton's black. It looked orange, but the skeleton's black. And there were some of the hard corals and then some of the soft coral sea fans that you've been seeing. The hard coral that I've worked on a lot, the colonial one, Desmophyllum, forms reefs all over the place in the North Atlantic in particular, and down to Brazil and across over to Africa. This is it right here with a big squat lobster and a sea urchin on it. And they can form mounds that take hundreds of thousands of years to pile up. And it's all coral skeleton and sediment, and then the live coral on the very top. And they can live from depths around 200 meters. So right when there's not enough light for photosynthesis, down to about 1,500 meters, which is about a mile down. And they form these big reefs and these mounds. In fact, we've done some modeling of a bunch of different types of corals like this that form deep water coral reefs. And it turns out that our estimates are that there's about twice the aerial coverage of the Earth in deep water coral reefs than there is in shallow water coral reefs. So
wow.
You think about the Great Barrier Reef and the Caribbean and all those islands in the Pacific, you add all of that up, you double it, and that's how many deep water coral reefs there are.
Wow, that's awesome.
So we really just discovered them people have known that there were corals there for a long time, but it wasn't until we had great tools like this, like the ROV, that we could go down and see things like this in this video. These really big coral reefs. And really get a feel for the community, for the size, for how they're working and living down there. And that lets us predict where they might be around the world. And now we're starting to understand their global distribution and something about what makes them tick and how we can possibly restore them.
Awesome. They're beautiful. And I just wanted to make a note that we're really going to be focusing on the deep sea corals in our next live stream, which is going to be on the 11th, which is Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, The Secret Lives of Deep Sea Corals. So we're going to talk more about this later this week. So come back and tune in for that. Thank you so much for joining us, Eric. We're going to bop over to make sure we don't have any questions from the audience and maybe talk a little bit more about ROV features before we wrap up today. But thanks for coming. What a nice surprise to have you here.
Sure, of course. Yep. And I'll be back Thursday. I'll see you again.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Perfect. All right. So we're going to, while y'all think if you have any questions in the chat, let's take a little peek and let's go ahead and take a little closer look at the ROV. Maybe we can see a little bit of the different features that we have on an ROV. I think we have a little video tour. We can take a peek at what are all the features that Sam is working with right now as she goes around on the seafloor. It looks like they're moving right now.
Hey, I'm Samantha Flounders. I'm Jessie Heiss, and we're with the Undersea Vehicles program out of University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And this is our Mohawk 18 remotely operated vehicle, or ROV. And we're excited to get to talk to you about her today. Yeah, we'll start off with the front here and let you know what type of cameras we have, our video recording, and just do a walkthrough of all of the different instrumentation that our ROV has. Our main video recording camera here is an HD Mini Zeus. We have lasers on the bottom of it for scaling, 10 centimeters. Above it is our digital stills camera, also equipped with lasers for scaling, 10 centimeters as well. We've also got lights all across the vehicle because it does get pretty dark. We're able to go to up to 1,000 meters depth, so we need to be able to see down there. We also have compass and sonar for navigation purposes, so we can see where we're going down there. Yeah, just to finish up the front while we're still looking at it, down here, the lower portion of the ROV, which is actually detachable, is called the skid or tool skid or science sled. And so this sled, the front is equipped with a manipulator arm. This is our robotic arm that's controlled by one of us inside. There's a pilot and a manipulator inside. It's a 5-function, all-electric manipulator arm, which has access to the bio box that you can see partially open. We can take our jaw, we have a rotate function, a clamping function, and there's a razor blade on the front there too, so a snipping function. And we do a lot of soft coral collections, crabs, invertebrates, sand, sediment, you name it. We can do a lot of different textures, and it all gets stored in the bio box. But additionally, we also have other sampling techniques. So if you follow us around back, we have a carousel that has 5 bottles that we can actually slurp up samples. So we have a suction hose that our manipulator arm can operate, and that can suck up samples. So some of our more delicate samples get sucked up so as not to be crushed by the jaw, or some of the faster moving, harder to catch invertebrates, sometimes we suck up with our slurp. So that's really fun. And we also have a digital stills camera on the bottom of our collection skid as well. So our strobe's over here. And then we have a downward facing camera so we can float up off the seafloor with the ROV and be able to capture an image of what's right below us, which helps a lot for the scientists with ground truthing, mapping data and things like that to confirm what's being shown. So that's another neat function. We also have a CTD, which collects temperature data, pH, things like that. And we also have an oxygen sensor on board as well, so we can collect all those types of data so they can be associated with a lot of the samples that we collect, and just to have that kind of data for our transects that will operate as well. So we're collecting anything that is of interest to the scientists, and it's really cool to see all of what's down there and know that a lot of different projects are using the data collected by the ROV to further their research.
Awesome. I hope y'all enjoyed learning a little bit more about the ROV and all the different features. Oh, looks like we have the live feed back on as we're cruising along here. So I'm going to pivot to some questions we had from the audience while they're working over there. All right. Tom's asking, how deep will you be operating at today? Is the ship making any headway during operations? Great question. So I can answer the first part of that. Sam had mentioned they were aiming for actually, Sophia, are you there? I know she said that the depth range of the Mohawk is 1,000 feet, which is a little over 3,000 meters. But can you recall how deep we're going in this dive today? I want to say it was a few hundred meters.
I believe around 400.
Yeah, that
It's
sounds
not
like
exact,
what
but in that
mentioned.
range.
Yes, excellent. And is the ship moving while the ROV's in the water?
So no, it actually, well, slightly. When we're collecting samples, they try to hold station as best they can. And otherwise they're doing transects with the ROV. So the ship is kind of very, very slowly, I think about less than a knot speed following the ROV as it's doing its transects. So the bridge and the ROV pilots are in constant communication of where they need to be, and they're always slightly adjusting their position, but very limited movement during it.
Yeah, just trying to keep up to make sure it doesn't go too far.
Exactly.
And Sophia, I obviously know you. You've been behind the scenes operating cameras and mics for us this whole time. And now you're jumping in to answer some questions for Sam and Stacy. But can you introduce yourself really quick before we wrap up with any more questions?
So I'm Sophia. I work at the Inner Space Center, and on board I am doing all of the communications work. So I'm taking some pictures and videos of the scientists that you've probably seen during this live. And I also set up all the cameras and such for this event. And now I'm here in front of the camera reluctantly answering questions.
Yeah, you enjoy being more behind the scenes, right? And yes. For folks that aren't familiar, folks that aren't familiar with the Inner Space Center, that's based at University of Rhode Island, which is actually where I went to college. Yay. All right, so looks like we can see the sea floor now. Live footage from the ROV. Looks like we have a Venus flytrap anemone, and I can't quite see what that fish is at the bottom. Maybe a scorpion fish. Is Stacy there? We have some sort of creature. All right, let's see if we have any other questions from the audience before we wrap up today. Oh, we have a question. What is the species name that Eric works with? All right, I know the answer to that. It's called Desmophyllum pertussum. It's two very large words. And it used to be called Lophelia. So you might see some previous expeditions called Lophelia that were named after the prior name of this species. And that's a great note that species names can change. So as we learn more about the deep sea, sometimes things need to be renamed because they aren't quite what we thought they were, or we'll find some more different instances of species to compare to. All right, I think that's all the questions that we had for today. So we will wrap up, and I just wanted to give a big thanks to everyone out there. And if you can make sure to say thank you to Sam and Stacy afterwards, Sophia. And thank you for all your hard work behind the scenes, running around, getting all this great footage and making sure we can hear and see everyone. So I just want to kind of wrap up and just remind folks all this work that they're doing out on the ship right now and through our whole field season, which is we start usually in March and go through October. It's all supporting the restoration of these deep coral habitats in the Gulf that were injured by the Deepwater Horizon oil spills. So whether we're getting more footage of the seafloor like we're doing here with transects, whether we're collecting samples of corals or sponges or other specimens to identify how they're connected through genetics or learn more about them by observing them in the lab and caring from the lab, all the work that we're doing at sea is so that we can do the best job restoring these habitats from the oil spill. Sophia, let's end with something that gives you hope joining on these expeditions? I know you've been on quite a few for us over the last couple of years. Why do you enjoy doing this work?
I think the best part about this is meeting all the amazing scientists who are doing this work. Every cruise that I've been on, which I've only been on a handful, but every single one I'm meeting new people who are all equally as passionate about this work. And it's very inspiring because it's a relatively small field. It's not, in the public eye too much, but seeing how very passionate all these people are about this one thing, it's very hopeful for me.
Awesome. Love that. And of course, then there's the ice cream too.
Yes.
All the ice cream. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us. Give everyone our thanks and good luck with the rest of the expedition. All right. So I'm going to wrap up by just reminding folks about things we have coming up. I mentioned it earlier, but on Thursday, we have our next live stream coming up to learn more about these deeper corals. So keep your eyes out for that. It's at 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, The Secret Life of Deep Sea Corals. And so if you like today's event, you want to join Thursday, you want to hear more about the upcoming events or watch recordings or future ones, we're going to drop the link in the chat to make sure you can find that playlist. And if you're on that page, you can see that live icon that will show you where all the next live streams are coming up as well. And to learn more about these projects, find articles, publications, our story map, hear about updates, etc., check out the other links we're providing in the chat. I know there was one earlier about that story about sample going from sea to the Smithsonian, so take a look at that too. And we'd love to get your feedback on today's program, so please fill out the quick feedback survey that'll be linked in the chat as well. We'd love to hear from you. And last but not least, you can learn more about the restoration in the Gulf by visiting another link we pop into the chat. And thanks for joining us today. And thanks again, Sophia, Sam, and Stacy on board.
Thank you.
See you soon.